concentration, you can't really develop higher wisdom, and you can't really develop all of the Bodhisattva's activities. So it's surprising like that. It's not, you might think, oh, concentration is just one of the many things you have to do. You have to be generous, you have to be patient. But concentration is the foundation for wisdom. So let's try to develop a little concentration and motivation within that thinking. I'm going to try to practice concentration right now for the welfare of sentient beings. So relax your body, your mind. Put your attention just on your respiration. Bring your attention away from your eyes, your body consciousness, your ears. Then transfer your concentration, your attention to the mental consciousness. And in so doing, try to familiarize yourself to recall also what we have done before, just watching the mind, sensing the nature of the mind behind the thoughts. One way to extricate yourself from a continuum of thought pattern is just to ask yourself, what is perceiving these thoughts? And as though turning your back on the objective thoughts, try to perceive the subjective mind to which they're appearing, the subject rather than the object thoughts. clear light nature of our mind is always present in our mind. It's our inner resource, our conventional Buddha nature in a sense. Within it, all the good qualities can be developed, all the negative faults can be eliminated. As in the mind streams of all living beings, whoever we find most dear this lifetime, some friend that we find very kind and attractive, all living beings have been as kind and attractive to us in numberless times in the past, exactly equal. The only way to escape from cyclic existence, to find everlasting, peaceful happiness, and the only way to achieve enlightenment is to realize the ultimate nature of phenomena, emptiness, along with their associated methods. In the case of liberation, certainly renunciation. In the case of enlightenment, the method of bodhicitta. In order to better understand the stages of that development in my own consciousness, for the welfare of all living beings, in order to bring about their welfare, I'm going to continue studying philosophical tenets taught by Lord Buddha, as a staircase to get me closer to the subtlemost view of reality that the Buddha presented. Without that subtlemost view, we'll never be able to actually eliminate the self-grasping, ignorance, the delusions, nor the obstructions to omniscience. So knowing that our ability to help sentient beings depends on our state of understanding, our realization, and that depends on our hearing, contemplation, and wisdom, I'm going to listen with a thought in mind to benefit all sentient beings. And relax, bring your attention back. Welcome back to Frank. So, any questions? We've been talking about tenets. Is that a question? Cough?
Can I ask a general question?
Yes.
I was thinking about memorization. I think you understood that in the monasteries, usually the monks, if they were going to study a text, they memorise the text first.
Okay.
Is that right?
Are you going to memorize it in Tibetan or English?
No, I was just wondering, like,
Good for you.
I mean, that would be nice. That's a nice aspiration to have. But what are the? Do you know what techniques they use to memorise? Do they get taught how to memorise, or?
Do they get taught how to memorize? I think repetition.
Just by reciting,
I think after some time it becomes easier. Some of the monks are able to memorize several pages a day, the long Tibetan text. That's usually how they can tell how good a memory they have, how many pager they can memorize. And they recite that again and again. So they, what would we call it? Rehearse is not the, do we call that in English? Recite, repetition, like in the evening, when their mind begins to get a little bit dull and it's hard to study, they'll go out on the road outside or around their house, and sometimes they might have the pager with them in case they forget something, so they'll be reciting the words, sometimes very loudly, like if you see the boys at Kopan, there are different reasons why they might be reciting loudly. Part of it is to leave an imprint in your own mind. Like if you want to learn a mantra, the Vajrasattva mantra or Manjushri mantra, you're going to do a retreat. Sometimes it's good for the weeks before that to recite the mantra many, many times. First slowly, a little more fast, loudly to yourself, so it leaves sort of a reverberation in your memory. I think another reason they recite them out loud is because other boys are reciting, and they can't hear themselves if they just say softly. And I think in the West we have a sort of like an inferior view of that, as though what we call it rote learning something by memory. Modern educationists, educationists would say that that's not, what's more important is to know the meaning and so forth. Indeed, it is more important, but the point of memorizing is that if you memorize, usually what they did was they had two kinds of texts. They had the root text and the commentaries. Like in New York City, I think His Holiness taught the root text of the Tenets that you guys went to, right? And is that translated in the Tenets text that you have, the root text? So, I mean, just as an example, so it's quite brief, right? That's something, and they would memorize that, they would memorize maybe some other text, but they would memorize the Parchin, the Abhisamaya Alamkara. That would be one root text they would memorize. That was a text for Parchin. You know what Parchin is, right?
It's short for something.
Parallel to Chimpa, right? The perfections. So that's what, when they study that, usually they're studying the Abhisamaya Alamkara, the Ornament of Clear Realizations by Maitreya, which is a commentary to the Prajnaparamita Sutras. And they would memorize the root text of Uma, which means Madhyamaka, so that would be Chandrakirti's. The text they would memorize was the Karikas, the root verses of Chandrakirti's Madhyamaka Vatara. And later they would study the commentaries, and they would also memorize the Abhidharma Kosha, Karikas, the verses of that. And they would study and memorize the Vinaya Sutra. This is for later. And then they would also memorize the Pramanavartika, which is the root verses of that, by Dharmakirti. So those are the 5 great texts that they studied. And then it's kind of like laying the stones down, once you know the words, then if you hear the commentary to that, to my mind, it's a little bit like putting the mortar in between the bricks, the stones, and you have a very firm structure. I think hearing the commentary once you've memorized something helps you to stabilize that memorization and certainly puts deep meaning into it, so you remember what the words actually mean. It's not just meaningless, sequence of words. So I think it's just repetition, and if you want to memorize some of these, maybe memorize the section. If there's some section here you can memorize, either about the mind and mental factors, memorize the virtuous mental factors, or memorize the ignorance and the definition of ignorance and wrong views, or memorize the Madhyamaka section here. Or some of the definitions are very important, like the definition of ultimate truth and conventional truth. The lower tenets also important, but if you were just to memorize some, those might be more useful. Okay. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. In
In this book, I was just confused just at the very beginning of the mind-only school, where it talks about the Chittamatrans assert the true existence of other powered natures, and I'm not really understanding what other powered natures are.
Okay, so we did mention that last time. You remember,
Yeah.
it doesn't come, so far it hasn't come in Jisundruki Gelson's text, but usually when we talk about the Chittamatra school, they say any one phenomena has three natures associated, or you could say there's three kinds of objects. I think you can say both ways. There are three kinds of objects. There are phenomena that are other-powered, or Shen Wang, literally, in Tibetan. Shen means other, Wang means powered. So literally, I mean, you could take that as you could just translate that as dependent. Phenomena which are dependent. Shen Wang are phenomena which are impermanent, and they are dependent upon causes and conditions. There's another category of phenomena that are called the thoroughly established, Yongdrup, or completely, how else would I say translated? Yong means thoroughly or completely. Drup means established or proved or existent. That refers to emptiness. And that's a permanent phenomena. Every phenomena has emptiness as its ultimate nature. And then there's a third category of phenomena that are called kunta in Tibetan. Kun means all or completely. Tak means imputed. So you could say imaginary phenomena. So for the Chittamatra, the imaginary phenomena are those things that are not truly existent. They're things that are merely imputed by the mind. Some of them exist, like space and so forth. Some of them do not exist. But the kuntak are not truly existent. Even if they exist, they're not truly existent. For the Chittamatras, the thoroughly established truly exists. So emptiness for them truly exists. You might say, well, you know from the Madhyamaka. Have you studied the Madhyamaka at all? No. So maybe we get confused sometimes. In Madhyamaka, in the middle way school or Prasangika, emptiness itself does not truly exist. But for the Chittamatras, their meaning of emptiness is a phenomena that truly exists. It's not just something that's imaginary. It is permanent, and the imaginary things are permanent. So that's the difference between them. And the Yongdrup, Shenwang, the other powered phenomena, form the third category of phenomena. So, as the definition, a little bit different in this text by Konchuk Jigme Wangpo, I think, right? The Tenets text. Is that who was the author? Do you remember?
260, I think it was.
Was it? Come again?
I think it was 260.
Konchuk Jigme Wangpo. Okay, this is the name of the author, the Tibetan author of this. He has for the Chittamatra, you say 260, huh? 249. Okay. So the definition of a proponent of mind only, or Chittamatra, is a person propounding Buddhist tenets who asserts the true existence of other powered natures. So that means dependent phenomena are truly existent, but does not assert external objects in general, okay? So how is that different than our definition? Our definition says the definition of a Chittamatran, that means a proponent of, I think again, this should say, if you look at your Tibetan text, some of you have the Tibetan text, right? It says, Chidon ke milenjing, does not accept external existence, external objects rather, and Rangrik Dendrup tu Dupe, asserting self-knowers, Rangrik, as truly existent, truly established. Tekchen Kijukta Mawe Kangsakte, a person who propounds Mahayana tenets, who asserts those things. So there's some words were left out in the translation in this text that we have. So it's very similar. It's talking about a proponent or someone who propounds Mahayana is a person propounding Buddhist tenets who asserts the true existence of other powered natures, but does not assert external objects. Who else could that be other than the Chittamatra? Could that be the Vaibhashikas? How does that eliminate the Vaibhashikas? You know, this definition here. The definition of proponent of mind only is a person propounding Buddhist tenets who asserts the true existence of other powered natures, but does not assert external objects. The fact that they don't assert external objects separates them from that almost alone asserts separates them from all the other schools except for the Yogacara Svatantrikas, some of the Madhyamakas that are similar to Chittamatra. Okay, that alone, they don't assert external objects. All the Vaibhashikas assert external objects, right? They accept external objects. The Sautrantikas accept the existence of external objects that are different nature than the mind. That's out there, real reality. Also the Prasangika, no doubt. The Svatantrika Madhyamakas will see, some of them assert, like the Sautrantikas, like the Sutra school, they say there is an external existence. And some of them are like the Chittamatrans, they call Yogacara Svatantrikas. They say there's no external existence. So that part excludes everything except the Svatantrikas, do not assert external objects. But they assert the true existence of other powered natures. The Svatantrika Madhyamakas do not accept the true existence of anything. So those two facts alone delineate just the Chittamatra, according to this definition. You could make many different definitions that would sort of pinpoint the thing, but in your own system you should have just one definition. So in Konjok Jigme Wangbo's system, that's enough to point out the Chittamatras. Is that unclear? Does it make some sense?
I'm somehow still stuck on other powered natures because that sounds like an external phenomena that is dependent on causes and conditions.
Other powered phenomena means dependent phenomena that arise because of causes and conditions, impermanent phenomena.
So like this table, but then they don't assert the existence of external objects. So.
It's just words.
Thank you, Venerable. It's just words. That's a good way of. It's a good way of just getting at it. Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay, other powered natures. So, sorry, excuse me. If I can have the floor for a minute. They say that although phenomena, like other powered phenomena, don't exist as external objects, they still exist. Because there is a presentation of the path to enlightenment. We have to depend on what appears to be external food. We have to depend upon food in order to live, even though it doesn't exist the way that it appears as an external object. So all of the phenomena that exist can be included in those three categories. Dependent phenomena, or we could call it literally other powered. The thoroughly established, which is like the ultimate nature, and the imaginary. So one way of looking at it is one kind of imaginary, the non-existent imaginary, is the fact that, for instance, this wristwatch, the appearance of this wristwatch is being distant and separated from the consciousness that's perceiving it, whether it be the eye consciousness or the tactile consciousness, or whatever consciousness. I don't know if you smell your wristwatch or whatever. Sometimes you know the wristwatch is on, right, because you feel it on your wrist. Or yours has got a self-winding, right? You've got one of those. So you could have some tactile knowledge of the wristwatch. So it seems like the wristwatch is an external object to the consciousness, cut off and distant from the consciousness. That is an imaginary phenomenon. That is an example of kuntak. This wristwatch is an example of shenwang, of other-powered nature. The fact that this wristwatch is empty of the imaginary phenomena, the imaginary phenomena of this wristwatch's appearance of being separated, distant from the consciousness that's perceiving it, is its thoroughly established nature. So any one phenomena can, these three natures can always be explained on any one phenomena. So when we talk about external objects, this is the the thing which the Chittamatra in general refutes, that there are external objects, whether they be the true aspectarians or the false aspectarians or all these other divisions. But what that means is, it doesn't mean that, going along with the name of the system, Chittamatra, or Tibetan Sem Sampa. Chitta means mind, right? Matra means mere, or only. Do you know Hindi or Sanskrit, Medya?
I know some bits and parts.
Matra, do you know the word matra? It's used in any other words today? Not mantra, matra.
I just read the definition in one of the Buddhist texts
Okay.
the other day.
So Chittamatra, literally the Buddha said in the Lankavatara Sutra and other sutras, all the three worlds are Chittamatra, are mere mind. So he had a particular intention there that the Prasangikas say was not what the Yogacara school holds it to be, but they take statements like that to mean that there are no external objects that are a different entity from the mind that's perceiving them. That does not mean that the cup is the nature of the mind, that the cup is mind. Like, say, for instance, the cup and its emptiness. Here's one for Thea. The cup and the cup's emptiness. Are they one nature? Are they one entity? Can you separate the cup? No, I'm talking about in general, say Prasangika, the ultimate view of reality. When we talk about the Heart Sutra not from the Chittamatra point of view, they do comment on the Heart Sutra. When we talk about in the Lan Rim, when we talk about emptiness, it's usually from the highest school's point of view when you get to the emptiness section in the Lan Rim. So the cup and its emptiness. The emptiness of the cup from the Prasangika point of view is an ultimate truth. The cup itself is what?
The
conventional truth. A conventional truth cannot be an ultimate truth. An ultimate truth cannot be a conventional truth. So they're different, but they're inseparable. The emptiness of the cup and the cup itself are one nature, like two sides of a coin. They're like what in the other at other points they say it's like they're conceptually distinguishable, but within the realm of being one nature. Okay? Maybe something similar here too. The outer phenomena for Chittamatra and the consciousness that is perceiving it, let's say an eye consciousness that perceives that, they both arise at the same time from a seed on the foundation consciousness. Well, what the one of the Chittamatra schools calls the alaya vijnana. Have you heard of that before? Alaya. Sounds like, isn't there some singer like I asked last time?
Yeah.
We talked about that.
Yeah, alaya. Sounds like someone, I can't remember. So, the alaya vijnana, foundation, or vijnana means consciousness, right? Alaya vijnana, the foundation consciousness, or basis of all. In Tibetan we say kunshi. So one of the schools of the Chittamatra, one of the two sects, accepts that there are 8 kinds of consciousness. Usually we talk about 6 consciousnesses, right? The 5 senses and the mental consciousness. So one of the schools, one of the divisions, Most of the Chittamatrans, what's most well known is they talk about these 8 groups of consciousness. Sometimes when we saw that in the low-grade text, we talk about the 8 groups of consciousness also. So that includes the 6 plus 2 more. One of them is the alaya vijnana, and another is the defiled consciousness. So the alaya vijnana is a subtle kind of consciousness which is inattentive. The objects appear to it, but it's not attentive of them. So it's not like a great thing that way, but it's the receptacle, it's the consciousness within which the seeds, all our karmic seeds are planted. So the karmic seed of the cup, of my perception of the cup, of how the cup appears to me rather, and my perception of the cup are linked together. One seed, when that seed rises, one part of it appears as an external cup. One part of it appears as the consciousness perceiving that cup. So for that reason, they say the appearance of external objects is illusory. That there are no real objects external as they appear, cut off and distant from the mind. But that doesn't mean the cup, what appears to be external, is itself consciousness. It's arisen from a seed within consciousness, and one part of that seed arises as the consciousness that perceives it. The other part of the seed arises as the object.
Would we be talking here about a subtle consciousness, such as the continuum through lifetimes? Is there a separation?
It does, according to Chittamatra, this kind of consciousness does continue, and it is a subtle kind of consciousness, but it's not identical to what we might talk in Tantra, like the subtle mind or something. Maybe some similarity, because the Yogacarans, with the Yogacara view, maybe you remember Kirti Senchab Rinpoche mentioned in his teachings, with the Chittamatra view in Tantra, you can even achieve very high states of realization, even the impure, illusory body. But you can't actually realize emptiness on the basis of that view, because it's not the correct view, but you can make very high realizations. So maybe Yogacaras have some, who knows what the intention of Buddha is, leaving some imprints of other things. But they're talking about the alaya vijnana. It has to do with this question about, from one point of view, one section of the Chittamatrans, that external objects, they do not accept the existence of external objects. It doesn't mean that there is not, that there is not a cup. There is a cup, but it doesn't exist as something external to and cut off from the consciousness which is perceiving it. All of the kinds of objects that exist, say of the sense consciousnesses, arise through the ripening of the seeds, the imprints on the alaya, the foundation consciousness. Does that make sense? So the other of the 8 consciousnesses, the defiled consciousness, misperceives the alaya as the person, as the self-supporting, substantially existent person. Maybe in a sense you can almost kind of hypothesize it's make some connections with non-Buddhist religions that perceive, that they talk about the existence of a self-supporting, substantially existent self or soul or atma. The Buddhist perception, even the Chittamatra perception here, they're talking about there is something that is misperceived as that. It is not. It is the person. It is, if you look for the person in the end, that one of these sections of the Chittamatras say the person is the alaya vijnana. But it is not existing as self-supporting, substantially existent as it appears to the defiled consciousness. Okay, let's with that, yeah, Don.
Just the difference between the two definitions. In this
Yeah,
text.
so our definition is different in
Yeah.
Jason Tricky Gelson's text, the one that we
All
have
the
to be,
previous schools,
we have to
yeah.
know for the examination.
Yeah, the definition is a Hinian or a lesser school tenet, he calls it in the school, or a school tenet. And then here, whether he changes the Mahayana tenet, he changed the Buddhist tenet.
That was different, right? Because
Yeah.
there, it was sufficient to say, to delineate the Chittamatra with his definition, because he was saying, Konchuk Chikbe Wangpo's definition was a person propounding Buddhist tenets. So first of all, you just take amongst the Buddhists who asserts the true existence of other powered natures, but does not assert external objects. So the second statement does not accept external objects. Remember, that excludes everyone except the Chittamatrans and the Sautrantika Madhyamakas. The other statement asserts the true existence of other powered phenomena. That excludes the Sautrantikas because they say nothing is truly existent. Whereas the Chittamatrans say there's lots that's truly existent. All the other powered phenomena, all the thoroughly established are truly existent. So that definition is okay. Now from our text, Jason Tricky Gelson's text, says a person who propounds Mahayana tenets, okay, the word person should be there, and does not accept external objects. So that part's the same, right? Well, what do the other texts say? External objects truly existed, or just external?
External objects.
Just said external objects, right? So that part's the same. And our thing says what? But asserts self-cognizers to be truly existent.
The other part that's in the book, but not in our text, is who asserts true existence of other powered natures.
I know that. This is the other phrase corresponding to that. This is what's going to be delineating the Chittamatrans now, right? A propounder of Mahayana tenets who does not accept external objects, but who asserts the self-knowers as truly existent. Okay, so who else asserts self-knowers to be truly existent? Well, first of all, let's see how his definition goes. The first statement that says does not accept, she says assert, but it says accept, does not accept external objects. Who does that eliminate? Eliminates everyone except what? As I said before, the Chittamatrans and the Yogacaras Vatantrikas. Because everyone else accepts that there is external existence, external objects. External objects here means objects that are of a different nature than the mind, that don't arise from that the objects are. The Chittamatra and the Yogacaras Vatantrikas are, when they're saying there's no external objects, they mean that there are no external objects that are a different nature from the mind that is perceiving them. So that statement eliminates all those people. So here's now they're saying, but who assert self-cognizers to be truly existent. The other text said who accepts other powered phenomena to be truly existent, right? So either statement will eliminate the Yogacara Vatantrikas because they say nothing is truly existent. So this text is giving another particular point, though. It's saying that they do accept the existence, and not just saying they accept other power phenomena to be truly existent. It's saying that they accept self-cognizers to be truly existent, because that, in a sense, that statement alone separates them from whom? The Vaibhashikas and the Prasangikas, because a lot of the Buddhist tenets accept the existence of self-knowing cognition. But the Vaibhashikas don't, and the Prasangikas don't, as they often have some kind of thing in similarity. So you could maybe you could say you wouldn't have to say a proponent of Mahayana tenets, but there's no harm in doing so because we're talking about Mahayana tenets here.
Definition of a Mahayana tenet.
Mahayana tenet, as opposed to a Hinayana tenet. Okay, what do you think?
Don't know.
Propounder of Mahayana tenets. So Mahayana tenets accept the existence that the Mahayana Sutras were the Buddha's speech, for one thing. The Hinayana tenets do not accept, none of the Hinayana tenets, the Vaibhashika or the Sautrantika, none of them accept the Mahayana Sutras, or the Tantras, anything, as being Buddha's word. It's kind of like all made up. Some crazy people. They weren't ready to get down to the nitty-gritty work of being monks and just doing it, getting out of samsara. They made up all this other stuff. Social consciousness. They must have been the proto-socialists, neo-democrats. I don't know what they would call them today. Left-wingers, easy, staying in something. They didn't work so hard. They stayed in samsara for a long time. They weren't trying so hard, So they would have all sorts of imaginations about that, not understanding the profundity of the Bodhisattva path. Propounder of Mahayana tenets, for one thing, accepts the Mahayana Sutras as the Buddha's word. Even that, I think, would be enough to delineate. The Hinayana tenets, and then there are all sorts of differences about, we already saw that there are differences between the Vaibhashikas and the Sautrantikas about what their understanding of the state of arhatship is. The Vaibhashikas thought that some arhats could fall from that state. Sautrantika said, no, that's ridiculous. If someone attained arhatship, it was not possible to fall, to degenerate from that state. They did talk about the state of enlightenment, but that it was very, very few people who achieved enlightenment. Of the Mahayana tenets, they all propound that there are a great number of people who follow the Bodhisattva path, not just the one Buddha, the teaching Buddha who comes, who is called, in the Hinayana scriptures, usually called the Bodhisattva. It's not like there's only one Bodhisattva, but there's only sort of like one Bodhisattva who's manifesting at a time, who achieves enlightenment. From the Mahayana point of view, there are many people who are achieving enlightenment, not necessarily appearing as teaching Buddha at one time. There are a lot of other differences, but just the fact that they accept the Mahayana Sutras, I think, would be one way of separating them. Okay, let's go through the text itself. So we hear some random facts, but let's see if we can put it in some order again here. So we did start last time. The definition of a Chittamatran is a person who propounds Mahayana tenets. It's a Mahayanist. Who is it the same? A Mahayanist and a propounder of Mahayana tenets?
I couldn't hear the
A
question.
Mahayanist.
Right.
Is that the same as a propounder of Mahayana tenets?
No.
Okay, I asked you before.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, okay, so
I-
you
I've learned
remembered.
my
Okay,
lesson, yes.
so what's the difference?
Well, you can be a propounder of Hinayana tenets and still be a Mahayanist in the sense that you pursue a path of bodhicitta, or
Right, you actually, in practice, there's a difference between, sometimes a bodhisattva might actually be adhering to Hinayana tenets at the beginning of their life, in some lifetime, because they had not very far along the path, and that's what happens to be appearing in the world. But they're actually Mahayanist by practice, by deed, and so forth. So here, a Chittamatran is a propounder of Mahayana tenets who does not accept external objects. They believe that they are nature of the mind, but asserts self-cognizers to be truly existent. Remember, that part is going to eliminate the Sautrantika Madhyamakas, because although the Sautrantika, the Yogacara Sautrantikas accept self-cognizers, they do not accept that anything is truly existent. Chittamatra, here it says Vijnaptivadan. I'm not sure if that's right, Vijnaptivadan. And Yogacharan, maybe that's right, Vijnaptivadan and Yogacharan are synonymous. This is donchik, or one meaning, synonymous. So the divisions, did we talk about this last time? Two divisions, true aspect Chittamatrans and false aspect Chittamatrans. What do you think, Georgie? Did we talk about that?
I think we mentioned it, yeah. I think you mentioned it, excuse me.
You can say we.
I didn't mention it.
We are part and parcel of one group. The definition of a true aspect Chittamatran is a Chittamatran who asserts that that part of the appearance that appears as gross form to a form apprehending direct perceiver in an ordinary being's continuum is not polluted by the propensities of ignorance. Very clear, right? We talked about this last time a little bit. Was it clear then?
No.
Didn't we talk a little bit about it?
Yes.
So all the Chittamatrans, whether they be true aspectarian or false aspectarian, they accept that the appearance of objects as being distant and cut off from the consciousness that's perceiving them, the fact that they appear to be external objects, that these appearances arise due to imprints in our mind, translated as propensities of ignorance in our consciousness. Okay? For instance, you can realize at the emptiness of those appearances. But there's a difference about this phenomena of gross phenomena. Something like, for instance, this cup is a gross phenomena in that it may. Thank you. Focus on that. This cup is a gross phenomena. The table is a gross phenomena in that it maintains its own, upholds its own position, you might say, its own location. Although maybe in theory, in Photoshop, you could take a photo and you could superimpose it. You could put Dorji's photo with, Carrie's photo and see what their children would look like or something like that. You know what I mean? Superimpose two things. But you couldn't take in gross objects, you can't have them occupy the same space. And you might argue, I'm sure who's going to argue? Probably, who's the most argumentative person here? Median will probably argue that you could put milk, which is a gross object, in the cup and they're occupying the same place, but that's not occupying the place of the ceramics, right? Say if you had two rocks, you can't superimpose them in the same place. They're kind of gross objects. Now, the question arises, the gross objects are made up, they're not made up of external particles, first of all, right? Both systems the true aspectarians and the false aspectarians would accept that phenomena are not made up of external objects. Why not? Because neither system accepts the existence of external objects that are a different entity from the mind. But still, that part of the seed in Alaya, that's in the Alaya Vijnana, that's arising as the appearance of the cup, there's a question about what about the seeming gross nature? There's something that's, you move this, it's not like you just move some of the atoms. There's a difference between, say, a cloud. If you try to move the cloud, you move a couple of the atoms, the rest of the atoms stay there, right? The molecules. If you move the cup, the whole cup moves together. It's a gross object. There's a question about whether the grossness of objects is something that's also due to the propensities of ignorance on the consciousness, or whether it is actual reality. So the true aspectarians, is that what we start with here, or the false aspectarians? True aspectarians, they talk about in the continuum of an ordinary being, that part of the appearance, so there's one part of the appearance that appears as external, that part we're not concerned with. The part of the appearance as being a gross phenomena, a gross object, is not polluted by the propensities of ignorance. It's not due to, that is indeed a fact. Okay? The definition of a false aspectarian false aspect Chittamatran is a Chittamatran who asserts that the part that appears as gross form to a form apprehending perceiver in an ordinary being's continuum is polluted by the propensities of ignorance. So this is, I don't know, I suppose if you studied Chittamatra in detail, there will be a lot of you could actually delineate certain Chittamatra scholars that were one or the other. So those are the two main: the true aspect Chittamatrans, the false aspect Chittamatrans. So it'll become a little more clear as we talk about it later. The true aspectarians also are divided into different divisions. There's 3 divisions. As is said here, the proponents of an equal number of subjects and objects, as it says, half-egists. I don't think it went into your text that we photocopied. It didn't get that far. Half-egists. It's kind of like that in Tibetan also. And what was the third one? Non-pluralists. So each has its own manner of asserting. It is said that so in terms of this is kind of explaining what the meaning is. Those who proponents of an equal number of subjects and objects assert that when a visual consciousness apprehending the various colors of the wing of a butterfly or a mottled surface, like say a piece of brocade, there are many colors appearing to the eye consciousness at one time. They assert that when that consciousness apprehends the various colors from the object side, an aspect of each color, blue, yellow, and so forth, appears, and from the subject side, the consciousness is produced that apprehends the aspect of each different color. Right? That's equal number of subjects and objects. The half-egists assert that when the various colors are apprehended from the object side, the are different aspects appearing, but from the subject, there's multiple aspects, but from the subject side, a consciousness is produced that does not apprehend the aspect of each individual color, but just what might be called the model, just the pattern. The non-pluralists assert that when the various colors are apprehended from the object side, an aspect of each color does not appear, just a mere conglomeration, a mere model appears, a mere pattern appears. And from the subject side, consciousness apprehending each color is not produced, but just apprehending the pattern. So there's 3 possibilities. There should be a 4th one, but there's no school that accepts that. What would be the 4th possibility? That just a pattern appears, but the consciousness perceiving each color exists. But that's not one of the possibilities. That's not one of the divisions. Okay. So there's 3 kinds of true aspect Chittamatrans, and there are 2 types of false aspect Chittamatrans: the tainted false aspectarians and the untainted false aspectarians. Whoa. A lot of words. So what's the difference? Have you read further along? Does it explain the difference between the true and false aspect, the tainted and untainted false aspectarians? So what do the false aspectarians say? Venerable? What do the false aspectarians say?
The false ones say that when you apprehend gross form, that it's
That
not,
part of the appearance
that apprehends gross form is tainted by ignorance.
is polluted by the, what does it say, the stains? What's the word they use here? Propensities of ignorance. So they're saying that is a false aspect, that it's not really true, that it's due to ignorance. It's not really true. The true aspectarians are saying that it is a true aspect. And it's not due to the imprints on alaya, that grossness is the imprints of ignorance. So the false aspectarians are two kinds. Those that say that the consciousness, that this is the nature of the consciousness, that the consciousness is tainted like this, and even when you achieve Buddhahood, things appear as gross phenomena. Let me see. I've written down here. Some of the other things, I didn't have that. So the true aspectarians say that sense objects are not external objects, but they do exist as gross objects. They are able to maintain their own position. That's kind of the meaning of a gross object. That is something which is a reality, is not tainted by the, is not false. Here I didn't write down anymore. Okay. So here, right at this point in the text, it doesn't talk more about the false about the tainted and untainted false aspectarians, but just something like this. One of them is saying that these stains or taints can be eliminated, and some of them say, the false aspectarians say, the stains cannot be eliminated from the mind, talking about what happens at the state of Buddhahood in Arhatship.
Which are which?
So the tainted false aspectarians and untainted, tainted would mean that that's just the nature. That's how even at the state of Buddhahood, that will still be, that appearance of gross objects would still be there, I believe. And the untainted false aspectarians would say that reality is not tainted in that way, is not defiled in that way, and so that when one attains Buddhahood, conventional phenomena do not appear due to the propensities of ignorance. That doesn't mean that the Buddha doesn't perceive conventional phenomena, but that not via that means. So it's a subtle point, and it has some, I think it has some ramifications with when we talk about the upper tenets also, and when we talk about the fine view of how the Buddha perceives phenomena in the Madhyamaka school. Like, how does the Buddha perceive the gross phenomena that appear to us? If a Buddha was seated here now, say Mindrol is actually Buddha, is this cup appearing to her from the side of the cup? The Prasangika would say there is nothing appearing from the side of the object to the Buddha. The Buddha knows that cup is appearing to us. It's appearing because of stains within our consciousness, our karma. So it's not as though when you practice Tantra or something, suddenly, or if you're a Buddha, this appears as a mandala from its own side, this building. That's a practice that one would engage in Tantra, but it's not. It doesn't appear in any particular way to the Buddha's consciousness. So in a sense, maybe that's a little bit like the untainted false aspectarians. I'm not sure. We can check. Let's just do the etymology, and then we're going to take a well-deserved break. Etymology, if someone asks why they're called Chittamatrans, they are called mind-only, or Chittamatra, because they assert that phenomena are merely in the nature of consciousness, and they are called... Here, the aspectarian is not the right term here. This sounds like it's talking about true aspectarians or false aspectarians. It's not talking about that. This is talking about they are called namrik, which was this Vijnapti Vadin, propounders of Vijnapti. The word aspect is, in Tibetan, is Nampa, which is, I think, in Sanskrit, akara, I'm not sure. But this is not the word here. This is just a modifying participle particle beforehand. Vijnapti. V is the nampar. So the translator has made a mistake here. They are called Vijnapti Vadins because all phenomena are merely the nature of Vijnapti, merely the nature of consciousness. This is similar to Chittamatra, the name. They're called, and they're also called Yogacharans, right? So the meaning of Vijnapti Vadin is very similar to those who propound that phenomena are all of the nature of the mind. So let's take a little break. We didn't get very far yet. So on page 11 now, the mode of asserting objects. There are two divisions of knowable objects, ultimate truths and conventional truths. Up till now, it sounds the same as other schools, right? Almost everyone's saying there are ultimate truths and conventional truths. But remember, up till now, the definitions have been different. For the Vaibhashikas, were you here, Mindro? For Vaibhashika and Sautrantika? Their definitions of ultimate truths and conventional truths were quite different, right? And now we have another one. The definition of an ultimate truth is that which is realized by means of a valid, direct perceiver that realizes it clearly without dualistic appearance. That's a good explanation. Ultimate truth, dharmata, is what they're translating as reality. You remember there was one of the texts by Maitreya, dharmata, dharma dharmata, dharma dharmata, vibhanga, distinguishing reality, phenomena and their reality. So dharmata is a synonym of ultimate truth. It means you could translate it as reality. Element of qualities is actually what we call dharma dhatu. Pardon? Dharma dhatu is the next one. So there's chuni and chuki kam. What they're translating here as element of qualities is what we call in Sanskrit is dharma dhatu. There's dharma centers called dharma dhatu, aren't there? Chugan Trupa's tradition. Dharma dhatu, there are different kinds of dharma dhatu. Like, for instance, when we talk about the 18 dhatus, remember we talked about the 12 ayatanas, the 5 aggregates. Some of you were in class the other day. The 5 aggregates, the 12 ayatanas, the 12 entrances, and the 18 dhatus, the 18 elements or constituents. The dharma dhatu is the objects that are exclusive to mental consciousness. I mean, the mental consciousness has all objects as objects of perception, but those that are exclusive objects of the mental consciousness are called dharma dhatu. And of those, the predominant object, for spiritual development is the ultimate truth. So that's why ultimate truth is sometimes called dharma dhatu, I think, maybe there's some other more sophisticated reason, or something like that. So ultimate truth, dharmata, or reality, dharma dhatu, element of qualities, and final condition are mutually inclusive, or are synonymous. These are all synonyms. There are two divisions of ultimate truths: subtle selflessness of phenomena and subtle selflessness of persons. So when we talk about ultimate truths, there are only two kinds for them. Only two kinds. There are two kinds. Subtle selflessness of persons is an ultimate truth for them. It is different than subtle selflessness of phenomena. It's a different object that's being negated. They're both called ultimate truths. For the Prasangika, let's say, for the Madhyamakas, we'll say for the Prasangika in general, the object that's being negated when you talk about the selflessness of persons and the selflessness of phenomena, the same thing is being negated, true existence. But here, for the Chittamatra, what's being negated when you talk about the selflessness of persons is the fact that the person is self-supporting, substantially existent. And what is being negated when you talk about the selflessness of phenomena is true existence. So if you meditated on the emptiness of true existence of the person, that would be an instance for the Chittamatra of the emptiness of phenomena, even if it was the meditating on the emptiness of the person, because the difference is distinguished by the object of negation, what's being negated. For the Prasangika, the same object is being negated in either case, whether it be persons or phenomena, and so they're distinguished by the basis, whether it's persons or phenomena. If subtle selflessness of phenomena are divided according to bases of emptiness, there are 20 emptinesses. So sometimes in the Prajnaparamita Sutras it talks about 20 emptinesses. It doesn't mean there's 20 different kinds of emptinesses. It means that there are 20 bases. What's wrong? Go ahead. Is this like class? I have to scold you? Mark's been good. For a change. Okay. Pat's getting... It's almost full. It was just full moon 2 days ago. I think he's still coming down, Okay. So when we talk about 20 emptinesses, if those are condensed, they're 18. When those are condensed, they're 16. When those are condensed, they're 4 emptinesses. Those are talking about, even from the Chittamatra point of view, when you divide emptiness in terms of the objects that are being emptied, that are empty of true existence, by the bases. It doesn't mean there's the emptiness itself is different. They're just called different emptinesses because the bases are different. Example of the subtle selflessness of phenomena are an emptiness that is form and its form apprehending valid cognizers' emptiness of being other substances. Remember we said that the consciousness, an object, let's say form, visual form, and the valid cognizer that's perceiving it, they arise from a seed, unconsciousness, one part of which appears as an external object to the ordinary being, one part of which appears as the consciousness perceiving that. And they are said to be really empty of being different substances. Okay, as they appear, sort of cut off and distant from one another. So where are we? Subtle selflessness of phenomena are, example is an emptiness that is, so this is what they mean by emptiness. There's 2 kinds of emptiness. Emptiness of form and form apprehending consciousness being other substances. Another kind of emptiness, example, is form's emptiness of existing by way of its own characteristic as a base or basis for assigning the term form. So in the Chittamatra system, there are 2 kinds of presentations of the subtle object of negation when we talk about emptiness of phenomena. One is that just sort of like directly related with the fact that phenomena appear to be external to the mind. And that is, that's a falsity, that phenomena, that the fact that form and the form apprehending consciousness are, emptiness means the lack of, or the emptiness of form and form apprehending consciousness being different substances. The negation of that. That's one meaning of the subtle meaning of emptiness, ultimate truth. From another point of view, it comes in the scriptures that the fact that form does not exist inherently as the basis of the name that we attribute to it, form, or Dorje is not inherently existing as the basis for the name Dorje. I mean, this Dorje over here. I don't have a Dorje on the table. It's said in the Chittamatra scriptures that those two emptinesses are of equivalent subtlety, and that in a sense, one can be, I don't know if it says in the scriptures, can be derived from the other. I have some sense that there's a debate about that, whether one can be derived from the other. Remember when we talked about forward pervasion and reverse pervasion? That if you realized one, the other would be understood implicitly? It's a little bit like that. Right. So those are two examples. And I heard either one of you two guys who had a question before, and I just kept going.
It just pops to me that with this way of thinking about the cup and the object possessor of the cup coming from the same sea. Can you say they have the same cause? The cup, the consciousness perceiving the cup and the cup have to come from the same cause? That sea?
They come in from the same sea, yeah. Well, there's also...
Because they assert objects that have causes and conditions.
Yeah. But whatever we perceive, like say for instance in this room, we all perceive this microphone, or we perceive the camera, or whatever, we all perceive the banner. But on a certain level, it seems like there is a common external object that we're all perceiving, if you don't analyze. This is the Chittamatra position. Without analysis, it seems that there are common objects. But when you analyze, you discover that all of our perceptions are due to the imprints in our own consciousness, and there is no common external object that we're all referring to. That in a sense, the fact that there is a common appearance that we all agree, Pat says, hey, the banner, and you say, yeah, the banner, and we're all looking at the same thing. It's not as though there is a common external object, but there is a collective karma that we've collected in the past that causes a certain aspect of that to be somewhat common to other people's experience, but everyone's perception of the banner or the camera or the microphone will be different. And they say that explains why different people perceive, like if someone perceives me, some people might perceive me as a friend, some people might perceive me as an enemy. Some people might perceive me as a jerk. Some might perceive me as okay, And the Chittamatra would say that that's because of the fact that there isn't an externally existent object that's truly existent. They're saying things are truly existent, but the fact that people perceive things in different ways shows that they are the nature of the imprints on their own particular consciousness. That's why their own individual karmic seeds. So although a certain aspect of it is in general, is perceived in general, a certain subjective experience of the object is due to your own particular individual karma. Okay, so when we talk about, let's go on to the other selflessness here. They say there are two kinds of ultimate truths, two divisions of ultimate truths: selflessness of phenomena and subtle selflessness of phenomena, and subtle selflessness of persons. The Chittamatra does accept also maybe a gross selflessness of persons, the person being empty of being, permanent, partless, independent, like the lower schools perhaps. But when they're talking about the subtle when we're talking about ultimate truths, it's only the subtle selflessness of persons, which is the emptiness of a person's emptiness of being self-supporting or substantially existent. So that empty of being self-supporting, substantially existent. That's also for them an ultimate truth. But what's being negated is completely different, isn't it? When we talk about phenomena, we talk about the subtle selflessness of phenomena, we say what is being negated is the fact or the appearance of the object and the consciousness apprehending it being different substances. That's what's being negated. Whereas when we talk about the emptiness, the selflessness of persons, which is an ultimate truth, the subtle selflessness of persons, what's being negated is the persons being self-supporting, substantially existent. So the objective negation is different. When we talk in the Prasangika later, one of the big distinguishing characteristics is with all of these, the Mahayana schools, we talk about a selflessness of persons and a selflessness of phenomena. And other than the Prasangika, the object of negation is different in the two cases. These schools, the Mahayana schools, talk about the selflessness of phenomena, refuting the self-supporting, substantially existent person. And they say that's sufficient. Understanding that emptiness is sufficient to achieve liberation, at least for the hearers. Some of the schools will say. And the emptiness of phenomena is different. It's a different object that's being negated. Here for Chittamatra, the emptiness of phenomena means the emptiness of form and form apprehending consciousness being different substances. The emptiness of that, the lack of that. For Sautrantika, it might be something more subtle, the emptiness of phenomena. For Prasangika, the object that's being negated in both cases is true existence, not just the emptiness of a self-supporting, substantially existent person, but the person being empty of being true existent, the form being empty of true existence. So there's a big difference there, that the emptiness is not differentiated by the object of negation, the two selflessnesses of persons and phenomena. I feel like Clark Kent putting on these glasses. The definition of a conventional truth. So that was an ultimate truth. How many kinds of ultimate truths are there? Is it just one ultimate truth? This one, right? All is one. You saw Matrix Revolution, right? All is one.
Oh, don't give it away. Don't give it away.
Oh, sorry. Did you see it?
No, no.
Oh, you don't want to give it to me. You don't care. You don't care about others.
Oh, I care about others.
Okay. So is there just one ultimate truth? For Prasangika, there's just one ultimate truth. But here, there are two ultimate truths, right? Selflessness, subtle selflessness of persons, subtle selflessness of phenomena. I don't know what they call gross selflessness of phenomena. I think you wouldn't, I'm not sure you'd have to say subtle, just means selflessness of phenomena. Maybe there's some gross selflessness of phenomena also. Now, the definition of a conventional truth is that which is realized by means of a valid cognizer perceiving that. The definition of a conventional truth is that which is realized by means of a valid, direct perceiver that realizes it clearly with dualistic appearance. Okay, so the different meanings of dualistic appearance, as Venerable Dreame was asking before. In the case of realizing ultimate truth, the different kinds of, this is a big topic in sometimes confusion in the scriptures when what's talked about non-dualistically, realized non-dualistically. One of the subtlest meanings in Prasangika means that phenomena are not truly existent. They're realized as not truly existent. But non-dualistically can mean, on one level, it could mean that there's no sense of a subject and object. Like, say, for instance, even if you have samadhi, right now, if you just generate samadhi, not talking about realizing any corrective view or anything, the sense of the subject mind and, say, Buddha's body, holy body, that you're perceiving, mental image in space in front of you, maybe one body length at the level of your brow in front of you. You might be meditating, and at first it appears to be a subject mind apprehending that. Later, it's as though your mind permeates that, and there is no, and when you have tranquil abiding, there's no sense of of a subject mind apprehending the object. That would be called non-dualistic in a certain sense also. So certainly emptiness, ultimate truth, the subtle selflessness of persons and the subtle selflessness of phenomena are going to be apprehended that way. For the Chittamatra, one develops, just like in the other views of emptiness, meaning of emptiness, you first develop an intellectual understanding of what the meaning of emptiness is, say the emptiness of phenomena, and you develop a certain mental image of that, which you meditate on, and then if you develop correct reasoning, logical reasoning, you can develop an inferential cognition that has a realization of that emptiness, still by means of a mental image. Eventually, you can go beyond the mental image and have a direct experience of that reality, that shuni, that dharmata, or that existence, that ultimate truth, that the consciousness and the object that it's perceiving are empty of being different substances. This is sort of like a first take. We'll go over this again. Yes.
The word clearly has been bothering me, and it almost seems like on page 11, it almost seems like on one level it's a contradiction in terms, clearly seeing something with dualistic appearance. The other problem, but then I thought maybe it means unambiguously, and I'm not sure if the word is surplusage or if there's a definite meaning to it.
Clearly is indicating that it's a direct perception, because it's talking about a valid direct perceiver that realizes it clearly. Let me make sure in the I don't have another translation of the text to see if she's this was the divisions of ultimate truths. That was the division. Was that after the divisions of conventional truths?
Before the division.
Okay, there we go. Zuxin. Semazation gi tongba tongba ni dang zuk zuk. And so you're talking about the divisions of, you're talking about the definition of conventional truth, right?
Yeah, and the word clearly also appears in the definition of ultimate truth, and using that same interpretation, it seems to be redundant.
Okay, let me just see where that came earlier. Oh, that come before the divisions of 20. I'm just trying to find the Tibetan.
It's the definition.
Yeah, it's before the divisions of conventional truths, just before.
So it says, come on, here. A subtle selfless is a phenomenon. Definition of an ultimate truth is that which is realized by means of a valid direct perceiver, by means of a valid direct perceiver, which realizes it directly. Yeah.
Yeah, this book calls it a prime cognition as the correct consciousness.
Yeah, but the different definition, right?
Yes.
So you'd have to really check and see, just as when we looked at the definition of a Chittamatra, it may be that that's delineating it in a different way. Here, I think I would not translate it this way. Here it's wrong. Ngun sum du tope, ngun sum seme, ninang nupe gone, tokpat jawa. That which is to be realized by way of the subsiding of dualistic appearances by a valid direct perceiver which realizes it directly. So the word clearly is not there. They've translated the word clearly from directly. So it's a direct, because say for instance, remember when we were talking about the Sautrantika before, you can have a phenomena which is realized with a valid direct perceiver, but is realized indirectly. This is a phenomena that's realized directly with a valid direct perceiver by means of dualistic appearance subsiding, or what's the word? Like nupa means, like when the sun sinks, dualistic appearance. What's the word they used here? The disappearance? That's saying. By the valid. It just says without dualistic appearance. It means by way of dualistic appearances, nupa, subsiding or disappearing. Okay, so there's no dualistic appearance. It doesn't say without dualistic appearance, but that's kind of the meaning of it. So where it says here, realizes it clearly, it should say it realizes it directly. It's realized by means of a valid direct perceiver directly, which realizes it directly by way of the disappearance of dualistic appearances. And the definition of a conventional truth, is there a definition? Yeah, later. Definition of a conventional truth.
That's what we were talking about, ultimate truth.
I was reading the ultimate truth, right?
It's in the middle.
And the definition of a Dagoseni, and then so the definition of a conventional truth is that which is to be realized by way of having dualistic appearances with a valid direct perceiver which realizes it directly. So it's, in both cases, phenomena can be realized, even permanent phenomena for the Chittamatra can be realized directly with a mental direct perceiver. Remember for the Sautrantikas, when you had a mental direct perceiver, like a yogic direct perceiver, realizing emptiness, you realized it with a yogic, say, direct perceiver, but you didn't realize it directly. You didn't realize selflessness directly. Remember this, the distinction? Because emptiness or selflessness is a permanent phenomena, and it doesn't, for the lower tenets, the Vaibhashika and Chittamatra, it doesn't appear to direct perception. Whereas the Mahayana tenets do accept that permanent phenomena can appear to and be perceived by direct perception. It's not as though we have to keep with that same kind of mindset. They say that that ultimate truths are realized with direct perception directly, not indirectly. That's by way of the subsiding of dualistic appearances. So in one sense, the dualistic appearance, if we're talking about the not just the dualistic appearance of subject and object, the subsiding of that being like when we have in Shine, but here it means the subsiding of dualistic appearance means the distinction of an external object and a consciousness perceiving it as being different substances. Ultimate truths, an ultimate truth, one of the subtle selflessness of phenomena, that dualistic appearance subsides. The other dualistic appearance would have to be that there is a self-supporting, substantially existent person. So there's different meanings of dualistic appearance. It doesn't always mean the same thing. In Prasangika, it means in the final analysis, one of the subtle meanings is just a dualistic appearance is phenomena appearing as truly existent. But that's not what's meant here.
May I ask you something?
Yeah.
And I don't know if you can answer it now, if it has to be in private.
I don't know if I can answer it now. Maybe it has to be in private. Yeah.
Well, okay.
Okay. Is that what you said? You might have to be in private?
Yes.
Okay.
You make me so mad sometimes.
I don't make you mad.
I get
It's a
mad
seed.
at you.
It's a seed in your consciousness.
Yeah, okay. Now then,
Good, you're commenting.
with the sadhana of Milarepa, where it says it totally eradicates the dualistic mind, would that whole sadhana then be a kind of like an antidote to this whole way of thinking then? Where it's talking about dualistic minds and dualistic...
Well, whatever one thinks of, if one uses the word dualistic mind, it depends on what one is referring to. You know, just like when we talked in the Vaibhashika, they talk about ultimate truth. They talk about selflessness. But what they mean by those words are completely different than, in some cases, than what the Sautrantikas or the Chittamatras mean. So I don't know, in your sadhana... Yeah. Why not? There's some of the schools I think even some of the Tibetan schools might seem to be leaning in the view of Chittamatra, or nowadays it's not really clear because there's some other kinds of things that are views of that are cropping up, like what do I call it? Shentong, other empty, and Rangtong. They call some of the schools is not talking about these four schools, but even some other kinds of views that don't fall within these four schools. But it seems like if you look at some of the Japanese and Korean Zen systems, it seems like some of what they're talking about is Chittamatra. Still, there are practitioners today that adhere to that view. They might not be doing Milarepa. But whatever is meant by the eradication of dualistic appearances, when you say that, merely saying the words is not enough to have the experience. You have to, well, someone might not. You might just think, I'm doing Milarepa, therefore I'm going to have that deeper experience. The words dualistic appearance there may be talking about the emptiness of true existence, at least if you were to interpret it from the Prasangika point of view. If you interpreted dualistic, the dissolution of dualistic appearances from the Chittamatra view, it would have a different meaning. This is our first take. Let's go through, and then we've got some more time to go through this, and then we're going to spend several weeks on the Madhyamaka, both the Sautrantika and the Prasangika, so we'll have a good understanding of that, hopefully. There are two divisions of conventional truths: other powered phenomena and conventional truths that are included in imaginaries. Remember, we said there were three kinds of phenomena: the thoroughly established, other powered, and imaginary phenomena. So, other powered phenomena are exclusively thoroughly established, thoroughly established phenomena are exclusively thoroughly established. Thoroughly established phenomena are exclusively ultimate truths. Right? The selflessness of phenomena and the subtle selflessness of persons. You with me? Yeah. Now, when we talk about conventional truths, there are two divisions. The dependent phenomena, the other powered phenomena, those are conventional truths. The thoroughly established are not conventional truths, those are ultimate truths. How about the imaginary phenomena? Some imaginary phenomena, the imaginary phenomena maybe have two divisions. Those imaginary phenomena that do exist, and imaginary phenomena that do not exist. Is it worth talking about imaginary phenomena that do not exist? Is it like this uninteresting topic? It's just so, not only is it imaginary, it doesn't even exist.
It depends if you're the one imagining.
then it's very important.
Is it drug-induced or not drug-induced?
It's interesting in the 60s.
Well, it's very important because the main thing that we want to negate are the imaginary phenomena. The things that the things that phenomena are empty of are the non-existent imaginary phenomena, right? That is, the cup's emptiness is its emptiness of being a different substance than the consciousness that's perceiving it. That appearance of being cut off and distant, or being an external object separate from the consciousness that's perceiving it, that is a non-existent. I mean, the appearance exists, but the fact that it's referring to, the cup being a different substance, that is a non-existent imaginary. It's imputed by the mind, and it is non-existent. There are other kinds of imaginary phenomena that do exist, that are merely imputed by the mind, but they do exist, such as space, uncompounded space and so forth. All the imaginary phenomena that do exist are permanent. There are some imaginary phenomena that don't exist. So here, when it says conventional truths are other powered phenomena and the conventional truths included in imaginaries. So that would mean the existent imaginaries, right? You follow? But so for Chittamatra, what is space? An ultimate truth or a conventional truth? Conventional truth. For Vaibhashika, is space an ultimate truth or a conventional truth? Ultimate. How about Sautrantika? It's conventional, but for a different reason, right? So, when you just read the text and you just say ultimate truth, conventional truth, and this and that, you have to be aware of which philosophical basis you're coming from. The former, that is, other power phenomena that are conventional truths, are synonymous with compounded phenomena. Here it says mutually inclusive. It just means synonymous with compounded phenomena. Compounded phenomena and other powered are synonymous. Or we can say dependent phenomena and compounded. The latter, that is, conventional truths that are included in imaginaries, are synonymous with uncompounded phenomena other than ultimate truths. Because ultimate truths are uncompounded, right? Am I really causing the gears to turn here? Uncompounded, ultimate truths are uncompounded, right? They're permanent, but they are not imaginary. Those permanent phenomena that are not ultimate truths are merely imputed by the mind. They exist, and they are uncompounded phenomena other than, because uncompounded phenomena implies that they are phenomena, uncompounded phenomena that are not ultimate truths. So they, meaning the Chittamatras, assert that all things are common bases. There's a common basis of everything is a common basis of being truly existent and false. You know what a common basis means?
No,
Like-
I don't think I know what anything means.
Can you give me one basis which is both a woman and a bhikshu,
Woman and a bhikshu?
a woman and a gelong, a woman and a fully ordained monk?
No.
No. You can't find a common basis which is both of those. Can you find a common basis of being a woman and a fully ordained nun?
Remake.
Venerable Dreame. You get, Oma is a woman, but not a fully ordained nun right now. Might have been in the past life or in the future.
Past life.
Half-life. You have a half-life of a couple minutes. Very explosive sometime.
It's a bardo, huh?
Sometime very explosive. I'm joking. Okay.
Sorry.
So when they talk about, they say that all things are common bases of being truly existent and false. that all realities, everything that is real, are common bases of being truly existent and true. And that all non-compounded phenomena other than emptiness are common bases of being falsely existent and false. What is it talking about here?
I'm worried because I understand.
Yeah. Pardon?
He says he's worried because he understands.
Okay.
Would you explain it to everybody else?
You gonna explain it?
Well, all things are common bases of truly existent and false in the sense that they are truly existent objects of knowledge, since this school does not accept the existence of external things. But
Oh wait, they
They
do
are-
accept some things are not truly existent though, right?
sorry,
What does not truly exist for Chittamatra?
external objects.
External objects
Do not
that are
truly-
different substances of mind. Those
They
are
are-
imaginary phenomena. Yeah, but in general, what is not truly existent are imaginary phenomena in general. So imaginary, that is one
Okay.
kind of imaginary. But even space, which does exist, is an imaginary phenomena and is not truly existent because it's only imputed by the mind.
Okay.
Okay, so when we're talking about truly existent, they say that the thoroughly established and the compounded phenomena, the dependent phenomena, are truly existent.
So they're not saying, when they use the word truly existent, then they're not making, are they or are they not making the distinction that they made earlier between external objects and self-cognizers? Self-cognizers being truly existent, external objects not being truly existent.
Well, they don't even have to talk about external objects being truly existent. External objects don't exist at all.
Right.
So you don't even have to say they're not truly existent.
Okay.
It's like if you were to try to make a fine point that's saying, the horns of a rabbit are not truly existent.
Right.
The horns of a rabbit don't even exist. You don't even have to,
Right.
there's no basis even to talk about that. Let me just see here. Pardon? I'm going the wrong page. Pardon?
False.
I'm trying to find how they're translating this here. Namden Bhatana. Okay, talked about that. Uma. Taki dupe kunzu dembe niyo dango duche dunchik. Okay. Dembe shidun dukena. Okay, so they accept that there is a common basis of being true and being that all chuni, all nature, all reality, chuni, it doesn't say all phenomena. Here it says all phenomena, right? So I have to check the
Says all things.
all things are common basis of being truly existent and false. Maybe I'm in the wrong place. Dondampa dempe shengi gupe chanchun dunchik. Dunchik. Mopo tamche dempa drupadan. Dunchik. Okay, here we are. They accept the common basis of that all things, that is ngopo, all functioning things, are truly existent and false, falsities. Why are they falsities? Things, ngopo.
Because they appear and exist.
Appear to be truly existent
But
and ultimately.
Right. Generally in the Mahayana, when we talk about that which is true and that which is false, we're talking about the mode of appearance and the mode of subsistence being something which is true. The way it appears is that, what you see is what you get. The way of abiding and the way of the way of appearing and the way of abiding is the same. In general, for the Mahayana, the definition of true. Something which is false is that its way of appearing does not accord with its way of subsiding or existing. It's like the example I gave before of Santa Claus. Uncle, Mark comes down the stairs at Christmas, dressed up as Santa Claus, appears to be Santa Claus, but his mode of existence is not Santa Claus. So here, when it says things, that means functioning things. Functioning, there is a common basis. All things are accepted as a common basis of being truly existent and false, because they appear to be cut off and distant from the consciousness that are perceiving them, for one thing. Okay?
Is it dualistic then? Or?
Here, when we talk about, here's not talking about, this could be a meaning of dualistic in some cases, but we're talking about this first meaning of, when we talk about mind only. Mind only means that there is an appearance that arises to sentient beings. You don't have to talk meditation or subtle mind, that phenomena exist external to the mind. Okay? That appearance does not accord with their reality. So all those things, ngopo, which is synonymous with shenwang, other powered phenomena, right? Because of the three kinds of natures that we talked about, other powered, the thoroughly established, and the imaginary, only the dependent phenomena are called things. So all these things, all these dependent phenomena are common bases of being truly established, truly existent, and false. They also accept that all chuni, all reality, how does she translate the second one? There are two divisions. Realities are, they assert that all things are common bases of a truly existent and false. That all realities, that's this word dharmata, okay, are common bases of being truly established, truly existent, and true. So what is reality? Remember, that was one of the dharmata was one of the three synonyms of ultimate truth. Or there was what did it say? Ultimate truth, dharmata, dharmadhatu, and final condition. There's four things that are held here as synonymous. So of the dependent phenomena, they are common bases of being truly existent but false. The yongdru, the thoroughly established phenomena, the ultimate natures, are common bases of being truly established, truly existent, but true. Why are they true? Because they exist the way that they appear, because dualistic appearances have subsided in their direct realization. The way that they are appearing to the consciousness is the way that they do exist. Capito? Okay. The five sense objects, form, etc. What does that mean? Form here means visual form, right? So visual form, sounds, odors, tastes, tactile sensations, tactile objects rather, the five sense objects, arise from the substance of inner consciousness in dependence upon the propensities of common and uncommon actions placed on the mind basis of all, and they do not exist as external objects. This you may say, well, we talked about that before, but this is where it's coming for the first time in the actual text. The five sense objects. This is talking about all of what appears to be the external world, right? Are five sense objects, because there's nothing what appears to be the external in the external world that's not perceived as being something that's of the five senses, object of the five senses, right? They're either visual forms, sounds, odors, tastes, or objects of touch. These arise from the substance of inner consciousness in dependence upon the propensities of common and uncommon actions placed on the mind basis of all. So, in dependence upon our own common actions, what would that be called? Common actions with others. What do we call that? Collective karma. Okay. There's some propensities on our consciousness that are due to collective karma. There's some propensities on our consciousness that are due to our own individual karma. And those are placed on the alaya vijnana, the mind basis of all. When they ripen, in dependence upon them, the 5 sense objects arise as appearing to be separate from the inner consciousness, but they are actually arising from the same substance of inner consciousness. They are not called consciousness. The outer objects are not called consciousness, but they are just as the conventional phenomena and its emptiness are different. You don't say that the cup is emptiness, right? The cup is a conventional phenomena. Emptiness is an ultimate phenomena, ultimate truth. From Prasangika point of view, I'm just using that as an analogy because maybe you're familiar. You can't say that the cup is emptiness. You could say the cup is empty. The conventional cup is empty of true existence, but you can't say that fact that the cup, the conventional truth, is empty of true existence is its emptiness. But the cup is not emptiness. But the cup is not separate from emptiness. That'll come again later. Dreamy? You comfortable with it? Not Dreamy. Mindro. No? You're not comfortable with it?
No, I'm not uncomfortable.
Oh, you're not? That's not what I asked.
Spoken like a true Chittamatra.
Spoken like a true dialectician. No, I am not uncomfortable with that. So the 5 sense objects, form and so forth, arise from the substance of inner consciousness in dependence upon the propensities of common and uncommon actions, karma, collective and individual karma, placed upon the mind basis of all, and they do not exist as external objects. This is one of their main reasons. They're called Chittamatra. The true aspectarians assert that the 5 sense objects, form, etc., are not external objects. We know that. Both the false and true aspectarians say that they are not external objects, but they do exist as gross objects. Remember, the true aspectarians, that aspect of being gross objects is something that's true. The false aspectarians assert that the 5 sense objects, form and so forth, are not gross objects. You would have to say they assert that they are not external objects and they are not gross objects. Because if they did exist as gross objects, they would necessarily be external objects. They argue in that way. If they were gross objects, they would have to be external objects. Okay? Following? Yes.
What is the substance of inner consciousness?
So, starting from the alaya vijnana, which is itself consciousness, right? There are imprints upon that, so that when those imprints arise, as we said before, when they ripen, one part of the imprint arises as the appearance of an outer object, one arises as the appearances of a consciousness that apprehends that particular object. They're interrelated. So it's said that the objects, the outer objects, arise as the substance of inner consciousness. They are not, there's a difference between saying they are consciousness and they arise from the substance of consciousness. When we say all phenomena are due to karma, so karma, most of our karma, let's say a lot of our karma is just mental action. Does that mean all phenomena are just mental? So even in Prasangika, there's a difference. They've arisen in some way from the mind. All the external world arises from the mind, but they are not, we don't say the outer world is mind, even in the Prasangika system, right? So there's some kind of similarity there, perhaps. The mode of asserting object possessors means the mode of asserting subjects, right? So the true aspectarians assert a group of 8 consciousnesses. We've talked about that already. The false aspectarians, where's that? Same page? False aspectarians assert 6 consciousnesses. He's jumped down a little bit. Okay. The true aspectarians assert 8 consciousnesses. A mind basis of all and an afflicted mind are added to the 6 consciousnesses asserted by other proponents of tenets, making a total of 8 consciousnesses. Example of both mind basis of all and afflicted mind are, first of all, mind basis of all is a first consciousness that is not other than the group of 6 consciousnesses and does not depend on a power as its empowering condition. I'm not sure the translation. An afflicted mind is the second consciousness. Here, I don't know if you should present the first. That means mind basis of all is a consciousness other than the 6 consciousnesses that does not depend on its own exclusive empowering condition. I think the word uncommon is left out there. I'll have to check in the Tibetan. This section seems to be a little more dodgy. Here, where it says examples of both, mind basis of all and afflicted mind are, the first, that means mind basis of all, is a consciousness that is other than the group of 6 consciousnesses. So that will differentiate it from the 6. That means it's got to be either mind basis of all or afflicted, and does not depend on its own exclusive empowering condition. That's one of the ways that differentiates the mind basis of all. Where is it? An afflicted, the second consciousness, the afflicted mind, is a second that refers to its referent. The mind. Okay, so the afflicted mind takes as its objective object, its referent object, the mind basis of all. That's what it perceives, and apprehends it in the aspect of being self-supporting, substantially existent. For the true aspectarians, the mind basis of all is an example of the person. That is the example of the person. But it is not existing as self-supporting, substantially existent. The afflicted mind, this 7th or 8th consciousness, depending on how you count it, takes as its referent object, what it's perceiving is the alaya vijnana, and perceives it as self-supporting, substantially existent. The true aspectarians assert the mind basis of all as the illustration of the person, the receptacle of the fruits of actions, that which receives the maturation of our actions is the alaya vijnana. The receptacle in the sense of that which. Okay, I'll try to check exactly what's meant by that. The false aspectarians assert 6 consciousnesses and posit the mere mental consciousness as the illustration of the person, which is the receptacle of the fruit of actions. So the false aspectarians say that the mere mental consciousness, not the alaya vijnana, a 6th consciousness, 7th or 8th consciousness, is the illustration of the person. They don't accept the 8 consciousnesses. So when we talk about, if you were to try to say the definition of a Chittamatra is a Chittamatran is someone who accepted alaya vijnana, that wouldn't be inclusive, because there's some Chittamatrans that don't accept alaya vijnana. The true aspectarians assert the mind basis of all is the illustration of the person. The false aspectarians assert 6 consciousnesses They don't assert alaya vijnana or the afflicted consciousness, and they posit the mere mental consciousness as the illustration of the person. So let's leave it there. Whew. I sort of wanted to race through this because it'd be so nice to spend a lot of time on the Madhyamaka, but this is something we have to get a little bit more clear. How's it going? You getting some clarity? No. No? I'm happy because I remember in the other class, it was not until about the 7th or 8th class that sometimes people would say, I don't understand anything. Do you remember? I think you said that, didn't you, Diana? I said, how are you doing? I don't understand anything. And then after some classes, maybe I understand a little bit, and then I think I'm getting it. So Oma, when I hear you say you've got it, then I'll be happy.
In my next lifetime.
In your next lifetime? Okay. Let's dedicate the merits first, okay? And we'll have some time afterwards. I think to do any kind of mental action, any kind of activity, even dedication, it's not enough just to say words, although that does have some power. You need to have a somewhat calm mind to meditate, because dedication is a mental action. So try to calm your mind first of all. And recognize that we've created virtuous karma tonight due to our motivation, due to our actions of listening to the Dharma, thinking. These actions as karma will have results within cyclic existence. If we created them with a virtuous motivation, they can only ripen in something positive within cyclic existence, either as pleasurable feelings or higher rebirth and so forth.